Hi, my name is Jason Abernathy, and I'm a front-end developer at Wolfram Research. I'm here to present the attached cell interface, which is a feature which allows you to build better user interfaces. My name is Jason Abernathy. I am a front-end developer. I deal with the Linux front-end, and I'm going to be talking about the attached cell interface, which is something that's been baking for a while in the front end and we use internally, but is something we want to bring out eventually into the system context, and we'd like to get some feedback from you guys and help us find out where we can improve it. So let's start off by talking about user interface design, and start with a rather assertive comment saying dialog windows are going away in favor of contextual menus. There seems to be a bit of a reclamation of screen space. I don't know if that's being pushed by users or if it's something that is being pushed on users by user interface designers, but you'll notice that, like for example, Mac removing the scroll bar that happened on Linux too. They think it seems to be a new thing where if you don't need a control, then it should just not be drawn. And so that is so if you have an interface that's built with like a palette or a dialog, that real estate is going to be used up. You're not going to be able to get it back until you close the window, but you might have need to use something that was on it. And so you're constantly battling with whether or not you need to keep it open or closed. And also dialog boxes, they can, if they're not relevant to what you're trying to edit at the time, they can just have too many options. And I was going to show the basic math assistant. I didn't want to call out any particular dialogue, but oh, I just realized I'm not in full screen here. You guys were so polite, nobody said anything. Yes, of course. There we go. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So if you, I love the Math Assistant. When I first used Mathematica, I got my first copy a number of years ago during my undergrad, and I love seeing the typesetting menu, all the different ways you can create the subscripts and superscripts and things like that. But if you don't actually need to have all that out at once, and you're not interested in typesetting, say you want to just add options to graphics, for example. Maybe I can bring this up here. It's just a lot. So yeah, so maybe we can do better. Maybe we have other ways of designing user interfaces that are very specific to the things that we want to do. Lou just talked about manipulate and dynamic modules. This is a great way of creating a user interface that is local to the thing that you want to edit. For example, here I have a graphics 3D with a sphere in it, and I have a nice input field where I can write a name. So a sphere, and I can change the lighting. One disadvantage, though, to this approach, well, actually, I can think of a couple. One is that the graphics 3D sphere that's on the inside there, it's coupled strongly with the user interface. So let's see if I can find, okay, I'll open up the cell where I define the interface, and you see that the thing that the model, the thing that I want to manipulate, is just this very small part of the expression, and all of the rest is pretty much the controller here. And also, the options for the sphere have been tightly coupled to the manipulate. So for example, if I want to, so close this up again. If I want to copy this sphere and email a friend and say, hey, look at this cool sphere I have. I can do that, that works, but they can't edit it the same way that I've edited it. And also, if you open it up, like Lou said, there's a dynamic module box in there. So it still, in a way, thinks that it's inside a user interface. So it's not like you're editing it and you get a pure object when you're done. So that idea of a strongly coupled strongly coupled model, I guess, with a controller is something that you'd like to avoid. Okay, well, I'll just skip that. Okay, so I didn't mean to rag on the user interface too bad, but I did want, I think this is the part of the speech or the where I say we have a better way, or we think we're starting to get a better way. And that better way is just by letting people attach cells to things in the front end. So here we have a cell that has a rectangle box with a little bit of text in it. Just by pressing this button here, you can attach a cell to it. And what it means by having a cell attached to it is this little cell over here that also has a rectangle box. It will move with this parent cell as it's scrolled, but otherwise it's not part of the notebook at all. Like if you do a notebook get on this notebook, you're not going to see this attached cell anywhere in the notebook. It's very ephemeral, so it doesn't stick around. If you save the notebook and you open it up again, that attached cell is not going to be there. And that's such a simple concept, but because cells are so powerful, you know, just that's the main one of the main expression handling things in the front end or in the notebook. Sorry, I'm trying not to turn away from my mic. Since it's one of the main, you know, you can put anything in a cell, so you can build some pretty great things if you attach cells to other objects. So I'll show you how you do that. Oh, sorry, before I'll do that, I'll tell you how we use it in the front end. So I mentioned that it's something we've been using in the front end. Whether you know it or not, you've been interacting with it. So the code assist menu, if you see that there, that is actually an attached cell. And when you press the button on it, it opens up another attached cell. And so that's a cell that's been attached to, I don't know if it's attached to the cell or to the box. The image editor, which unfortunately only comes up, well, it will come up in the working environment. So the image editor, that's another thing. The toolbar there is implemented with an attached cell, as well as the predictive interface, which, let's see, there it is there. So that's also implemented with an attached cell. So you can see these attached cells have lots of content. They have lots of buttons, pull-down menus, and things like that. Oh, I have to start my slideshow again. All right. One other thing, the cell group opener. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that before. This is actually an attached cell as well. It's a cell that's been attached to the end of the content area of that cell, and it contains a button. So these, the idea of using attached cells to make user interface elements is pretty powerful. Good question.
Because of many discussions we've had with people.
It's not obvious, but from this side,
the behavior will be more intuitive in version 12.
Your mouse is right by it.
Oh, that cell at the top there, that's an attached cell? I didn't.
No, sorry, no, that's a doc.
It's a doc cell. Okay. Actually, I did learn of a few other things that I didn't know were attached cells, but that's a doc cell. Okay. How to use it? Well, as I mentioned earlier, this thing is still baking. So currently, you can only access the functionality by calling directly into the front-end packet handler. But for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to define our own function for doing that. Just to keep things simple. So you see it just passes the arguments right into the handler there. And I'll evaluate it so we can use it. And now we will use it. So the first and second arguments of the packet, or which is now our function, are the first one will be the parent, so the thing that we want to attach to, and the second argument will be the cell that we want to attach to the parent. And so if we evaluate that, we see a nice little spiky. Oh, maybe I should have explained what this does. So we were saying we want to attach it to the cell that's doing the evaluation, and we're going to attach spiky. So here we see a little spiky there. It's been attached to that cell, and it will scroll with it. We also see that the function returned a reference to the attached cell. So that's that cell object there. And when we're done with it, if we'd like, we can just call notebook delete and it goes away. And it gets cleaned up nicely too. So if you have dynamics in there, it all happens nicely. Some other things you can do, or some other parameters to this function. So the third and fourth arguments, they are a lot like the arguments to inset. So they tell you how you want to position the attached cell relative to the parent. Okay, so I'll just evaluate a temporary function here, and all it's going to do is attach a cell. I don't know why it says failed, but this is spiky to the evaluation notebook at the position that we give it. So you'll see here that we'll attach spiky to the bottom of this notebook, and we will align the bottom of the attached cell with it. I didn't mention that the parent anchor is prefixed by an offset. If you say automatic, it just means there will be no offset. You can there are other keywords to it, but generally it's an offset. So if we just evaluate this, we see we've got spiky at the bottom. Okay. And I don't think I left, I hope that doesn't stick around the whole time. I must have gotten rid of the, oh yeah, thank you. We don't want that to stick around. Oh, you know what? Because of that option there that I'll be telling you about in the future. Okay, false alarm. All right, what else we got here? So a few examples of how the offset is used. So you see we're going to attach spiky to the bottom of the bottom right of the notebook. Then we're going to scale toward the center. So the parameter that is the offset is signed. So negative means go toward the center of the object, and positive means going away. So here we are aligning the center of spiky with the bottom right of the notebook, and then that's for the first cell. For the second one, we're going to be moving inward both directions by 20% because it's a scaled coordinate. And then for the third one, we're going to be moving in by 20% and then 100 units up and to the left toward the center. Okay. Positioning, the purpose of this slide was just to show you that if you're attaching things to the notebook, they do not scroll. So they're attached to the notebook window. So if you think you want to attach it all the way at the bottom of the notebook, so it disappears unless you scroll down there, that's not going to happen. On the other hand, though, things that are attached to cells and boxes, they will scroll. So they're more tightly bound to those objects. All right, now what can we do with this thing? I did not mean to leave that cell open, so for now I will just delete it. All right, how do you build an user interface with this? Well, the main way of communicating with the parent from the child, or getting information about the parent, is by using an attached cell parent function. So if you have any controls and you want to control something that a property or option in the parent, you can use things like this, like current value attached cell parent. So current value takes a reference object as the first parameter, and then the second one is the option name, and it can be used as the left-hand side of whatever object you're referring to. So because it can be used as a left-hand side, it can be used inside controls such as sliders and setter bars and things like that. So here I've created a small panel that has a color setter, and all it's doing, the color setter is going to change the background of whatever the attached cell parent is, as well as the margins. So I can evaluate that. I think this is probably one of the easiest ways of showing how cells are attached. And now I'm going to use my attached cell command, and we will attach this to this cell here. We still need to find a way to reference the parent object, which can be a little bit tricky with box objects. But for cells, you can use the cells command to find a list of cells in the notebook. And here I've just said, give me the first cell that has the tag example cell 2, which is this one here. And so we see if we attach this cell with the interface. There it is there. So it was lining up the bottom of the cell with the bottom of the parent with the top of the attached cell. And the controls work as expected. So we can change the background, we can change the margins. Also got a reset button there that just sets the value to inherited. And again, we've returned a reference to the attached cell. So when we want to get rid of it, we can just call notebook delete. Now, one thing I want to point out is there was no real coupling between the model. So for example, that would have been the cell and the user interface in that example, other than that keyword attached cell parent. So that's really useful because it means that you can attach the cell to whatever you want, and it will operate on objects that aren't written explicitly to be manipulated. So that's a really nice feature of using these attached cells, and especially the attached cell parent command. Now, it would be really annoying if you had to constantly call notebook delete on your attached cells, and obviously you don't have to do that with the suggestion bar and the image editor. So I've got, manually removing cells would not be so good, but we have a way of automatically removing them, and that's with another option, which I'll show you now. So I'm going to revisit the example I showed at the beginning that had a sphere editor in a manipulate. And now I'll show you an extra option to an attached cell, the attached cell function or the packet, called closing actions. And closing actions accepts a list of dismissal criteria, and any of which are satisfied, and the attached cell will be automatically destroyed. So for this case, and this is a very commonly used one, selection departure. If the object that you're interacting with, you move the selection away from that, then the attached cell will be deleted. So that's how the suggestion bar, for example, automatically disappears when you click away. And here I've just thrown an event handler on the sphere so that when you click on it, the cell is attached. So here we are. We click on it to attach the cell, and it's attached to the bottom there. And just like before, you can give it a name. Oh, perfect sphere. And we can change the lighting. And when we click away, there goes our attached cell. And if we look at the expression here, or if we Command-Shift-E and we look at the object, okay, we have the event handler, but there's no dynamic box there saying that this thing was set up to be manipulated, other than the event handler, which I admit is a bit of something that needs to be addressed. There are other ways you can have these cells automatically deleted. There's an exciting list there with all of the conditions. Most of them are self-explanatory. So I'll save that for now. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you can put anything in these cells. So I thought I'd end on a bang and show that even things like animates and things like that will work when they're attached. So if you have whatever you can think of that you can put in a normal cell, you can put it in an attached cell. So that's all I have for now. If you have any suggestions, like I said, this is still baking, so let me know, or follow that link which will probably let you email or file a suggestion report with Wolfram. Or you can just come up to me if you have any questions or comments during the conference, or email me directly. So thanks for your time.